We'll start recording.
Just did.
All right. Ready to go? All right, we'll call this meeting to order at 9:01. Nobody's participating remote. I don't have any modifications to the agenda.
Why don't we just do roll call?
Oh, yeah, sorry, my bad.
All righty, Chair Okrepke,
Here.
Vice Mayor Alvarez,
Present.
and Councilmember Fleming.
Present.
All right, let the record reflect, all subcommittee members are present.
Sorry, I did half of item one. Any modifications to the agenda?
No.
All right. Any announcements from the department?
We have no announcements for the Economic Development Division, but I do have some reports that I will make under section 10
Okay.
for departmental reports.
All right. Get to approval of minutes, 5.1 draft minutes from March 11th. Any changes to those?
No, I will just say, through the chair, for the record, that I did review the minutes, so I'm able to vote on them.
Great, then we'll show those approved as submitted. 6, public comments. Is there anybody here to publicly comment on anything on non-agenda items? Nope. All right, then we will go to item 7, partner reports.
Chair, we have no partner reports today.
All right, hustling through this then. We'll go to item 8.1, the new business, Economic Development Division update.
Yes, so good morning, Chair Okrepke, Vice Mayor Alvarez, and Councilmember Fleming. For the record, my name is Scott Adair. I'm the Chief Economic Development Officer for the City of Santa Rosa. Today, under new business, staff will provide updates on the primary categories of the Economic Development Strategic Plan, which was adopted by Council in April of last year. Those areas of focus are economic development, strategic plan implementation, business attraction and retention and expansion, entrepreneurship and small business, economic vibrancy and resiliency, community investment, metrics, indicators, and special projects today. For the Economic Development Implementation Plan, as I'm sure you're aware, the implementation plan, which accompanies the Economic Development Strategic Plan, was approved by the City Manager's Office and launched in January of this year. That is a 40-page plan which identifies specific action steps toward realizing the goals that are listed in the Economic Development Strat Plan, which was adopted by your council. For this report on the progress on the implementation plan and where we're at year to date, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel here, who is our program analyst. Rachel's role in great part entails the monitoring and tracking of our progress as a division and our projects and for the implementation plan. So unless you have any questions, Chair, I'll turn it over to Rachel.
Please.
Okay, Rachel.
All right.
It's all you.
Great. Thank you. And again, I'm Rachel. I'm our program analyst. And I'll just be going through our report. As Scott mentioned, this is for our implementation plan. So overall, our implementation plan has 4 overarching categories: business growth and retention, entrepreneurship and small business, economic vibrancy and resiliency, and community interest. So we broke up these 4 categories into 4 separate graphs. You'll see on the left-hand side the objectives. So each of the categories has objectives that are further breaking down the category, and then those are further broken down into action items. So the action items you'll see on the x-axis here, and then you'll see on the y-axis the percentage that each of these action items are complete. So I'll quickly go through each of the action items of the completion rate, so the percentage of completion, and then I'll go through each of our kind of higher highlights for each key accomplishment for each category. So for business growth and retention, our one-stop shop is at 50%, obtaining software platforms, 30%, conducting a business gap analysis, 25%, identifying key opportunities and land development sites, 30%, encouraging mixed use and innovative use of commercial properties, 25%, establishing site visits and open communication with businesses, 30%, supporting workforce development needs, 50%, developing incentive packages to attract key industries, 10%, creating an outreach and marketing plan, 20%, create a re-tenanting program, 25%, aligning efforts with Sonoma County for attraction efforts is 100%. So overall for business growth and retention, we have an average completion rate of 36%. And for our next slide, we just, I further broke down the action items. So this is our detailed, for each action items, there's 11 action items for our business growth and retention. So I'll highlight some of our action items that our team has been working on. So our physical one-stop shop is completed and we are beginning the contract phase of our virtual one-stop shop. The contracting phase is nearing completion for Placer AI, which is we will be using for tracking demographics citywide. We are nearing completion of the retail sector analysis through retail strategies. So that's for action item number 3, conducting a business gap analysis. So we'll move on to entrepreneurship and small business.
And Chair, as we move on, any questions on business growth and retention?
Please.
Where is the physical one stop?
It's right here through our lobby here. So did you enter through here?
I did.
Store. So on your way out, we can show you through our physical one-stop shop. So we have it here in our lobby in room 6.
Let's see. For business growth, is our local preference policy part of that?
So the local purchasing preference policy, which awards greater degree of preference to local businesses. That policy is not woven into the business growth and retention program per se. The business growth and retention program is aimed at providing existing businesses with business support and technical assistance and services, whereas the purchasing preference program is more related to if those businesses are competing under request for proposals for city work.
Mhm.
But we would still provide one of those businesses on that program the same level of assistance and support as we would a business who's not a part of that program.
Okay. Is there any room in this strategic plan to fit that in there or to revisit it?
Are you talking about a potential update or modification
Yeah.
of that program?
Yes.
I believe that that's administered through the purchasing department. Are you aware?
I can step in for a second,
Yes, that'd be
Scott, because I think that's a valid point. I think what you're referring to, Chair Krefke, is a local preference when it comes to certain business types.
Mhm.
And what does that local preference really look like? And one of the avenues that we have discussed this in is associated with our incentive packages.
Mm.
So when a new business or an existing business wants to stay, or a new business comes in and that new business is local, how do we encourage that through those incentives? So there is room for that conversation. It does become a discussion with our purchasing team. It gets a bit more citywide, but that is something that we are prepared to explore through that avenue.
I look to my colleagues. I would be very interested in revisiting that and updating it.
What only falls in line with the shop local, hire local.
Yeah. And workforce development, do more business, need more employees. So I would like to see that at some point. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and I think as we start formalizing what those incentives look like, this body to run those through. Some of those will obviously probably require full council action when we get into the specific incentives, but it's been anything from fee reductions to oftentimes there's tax incentives, and then really at a high level, when we better understand what other jurisdictions are doing, we'll be able to identify that package. And as part of that exercise, we can definitely include the local preference conversation.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I took a note. We'll take it under advisement. Any other questions regarding business growth and retention before we move on to our metrics for entrepreneurship and small business?
I guess in regards to retention, for a minute, the sign ordinances, how are we doing with those? Revisiting and modernizing them, whether it's neon signs, whether it's uses in downtown, permissible uses. Are we still working on those?
I'll defer to Director Osborne.
Yes, we are Vice Mayor Alvarez, we're actually looking at this as it relates to the use permit process first, similar to what we discussed in front of this body a few meetings ago. So we're looking at how we can streamline, how we can incentivize through the use permit. But as part of that package, we will also look at related permitting processes. So really what it's attempting to look at is when a new business comes in, especially a re-tenanting business, what applications do they have to pull? How quickly can we move those applications forward? How can we take what may have been a much larger process and neck it down to a director level? Very similar to what we did with the landmark alteration process. We attempted to put in streamlining measures, and we're prepared to look at all the associated application types with that. What we're really trying to do is keep it into a bit of a narrow band to avoid this larger element that occurs when we really tackle a lot of code sections all at once. But this is part of our incentive package as well. And I think that the sign piece, there's some process improvements that we can implement in the sign process.
And from the incentive, how it may bleed into the retention side of things as well, especially with the modernization of our ordinances to better serve the newer type of businesses that we want to attract to downtown San Rosa and San Rosa as a whole.
Absolutely. And I think just businesses that are existing that want to improve their facade, how can we streamline that process so where they potentially can be more competitive or more attractive? So
Exactly.
it will hopefully address really all fronts on the retention and attraction standpoint.
A better use of our neon signs, opposed to the massage parlors or those type of businesses.
Okay,
All right,
Thank you.
ready?
great, wonderful. Rachel is going to walk us through current action step progress year to date for our entrepreneurship and small business related programs and initiatives. Rachel, turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you. So our action items for entrepreneurship and small businesses, strengthening support through incubator organizations, 25% completion, identifying funding sources for small business owners, 30%, creating an ombudsman program, 100% complete, connecting with students for workforce development, 25%, and meeting with underrepresented businesses, 100%, analyzing opportunities to support home-based entrepreneur trends, 20%. So for the category of entrepreneurship and small businesses, we're at a 50% average completion rate. And our detailed action items are listed here. Some notable highlights for action items are our partnership with a small business development center, our ongoing development of an intern program, our establishment of our Rise and Thrive program for our underrepresented businesses, our creation of the ombudsman program. And then if we want to stop after every category and for questions about entrepreneurship and small business?
Well, for me, with the completion of the meet with underrepresented businesses, what was most telling of those meetings? If there were actually physical meetings with them.
Oh, I can answer that, Vice Mayor. So by completion, what we mean is that program has been launched and is moving forward, but it entails more than just a one-time meetup with those businesses. This will be a recurring quarterly meetup with businesses and business support agencies who are traditionally or have been historically underrepresented or at some sort of disadvantage, or who meet the Small Business Administration's criteria or qualifying criteria for what a disadvantaged business might be. As was discussed at our last meeting, that list is growing. We're adding other types such as veteran-owned businesses, et cetera. What we found in that first meeting is that there seems to be a need for consistent messaging and where to find that messaging so that all of these organizations can be on the same page and that we're on board as new resources and tools are coming out, that maybe you're more well-equipped businesses or businesses who can afford expensive consultants and assistants might have sort of a head start on some of these programs to keep those other business types informed and up to date and up to speed on all those current trends and activities. And we have another, we called our Rise and Thrive breakfast meeting with this group in May. And we'll be taking back to that group some questions that came out of our first meeting. We did a poll And we ask these businesses, what is important to you from a city perspective? What type of support are you looking for? And so we'll get more information from them when we meet in May.
And I do appreciate the comment of the Rise and Thrive. One of my follow-up questions was, how do you disseminate this information to the business owner, whether you travel to the mountain or you ask the mountain to travel to you? And so seeing that there is a meeting of these individuals so that the information can be disseminated all at once is great. But are there also programs where the businesses are being visited by these resources?
So as part of our
And I know it's still early on the program, what the theory or the plan is.
Right. As part of our business retention program and under the ombudsman program, we will be doing actual face-to-face door visits, sit-down interviews with businesses with a focus on small businesses, and certainly any underrepresented businesses would be a part of that. Right now, at this stage, we're leaning more into these business support agencies. Because the business support agencies for these disadvantaged business populations are developing these structures for providing those business types with information and assistance and consulting. And so we're leaning into what we can do to work with these agencies, like the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, for example, the Asian Pacific Chamber of Commerce, these types of organizations who are working with these businesses, working to figure out how we can provide them with support.
That's great.
Part of that conversation will be the outreach piece that you're talking about as well.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We will move on to our next category, which is economic vibrancy and resiliency. And I will just remind everyone, and I neglected to mention it at the beginning. The Economic Development Strategic Plan is a 3-year plan. And so as we're looking at these weighted percentages and where we're averaging out in terms of completion overall, we're about 30% or about 1/3 of the way through the 3-year plan at this point. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you for the next slide.
Great, thank you. For economic vibrancy and resiliency, our action items, expanding downtown asset strategy, 20%. Establishing an enhanced infrastructure financing district in downtown, 25%, aligning with the general plan, 50%, amending zoning code, 20%, conducting a downtown infill study, 10%, create an economic development fund for feasibility studies, 10%, explore sports as an economic driver, 25%, assess city hall complex redevelopment opportunities, 100%, implement public art strategic plan, 75%, support community events and activities, 30%, champion sustainability and climate action, 20%, and overall for economic vibrancy and resiliency, we're at a 35% average completion rate. And for our detailed action items, they're here. And some of our ongoing projects and initiatives for these action items include our farmers market, our second Sundays, which I'll speak about in detail later in the meeting, our courthouse square event permit transition plan, providing input to the general plan update, and significant work in our public arts and culture on implementation of their strategic plan. And questions about economic vibrancy and resiliency?
Let's just, I'll just add an update if I may through the chair.
Yeah.
Sure.
A few things are happening with economic development simultaneously. And as we've been updating these slides and updating our report on the progress toward the strategic plan implementation, progress and movement has been occurring with the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, which is being handled primarily directly under and through Director Osborne and through planning. So we're actually closer to a 75% completion on the EIFD. And I could turn it over briefly to Director Osborne just to sort of walk us through maybe some updates on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what you'll see in these is really big jumps in the percentages, because behind the scenes, what they track with are the major accomplishments or milestones. So as we move forward, the PFA is discussing the infrastructure financing plan that's associated with the EIFD. We are targeting a full council action in June for that. So that's moving forward. So as these meetings occur, you'll see big jumps in some of these percentages because they are tracking with milestone and not necessarily the day-to-day action. So I think just that point of clarity that you can go from 30 to 50 to 75 fairly quickly through this journey, just based on the fact that a lot of those milestones are occurring on parallel paths and they start all coming together really at the same time.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions regarding this category?
No. Let's move on.
Okay, we're going to move on to community investment.
And our final category for community investment, coordinating annual surveys, 20%, advancing childcare programs is at 25%, expanding upstream investment pilot programs, 10%, and using ARPA funds to address childhood poverty, 100%. Community investment as a whole is at 39% average completion rate. And our detailed action items here, and my apologies, that should say action items and not objectives here. Regarding the following action items, the program framework is in development for the annual survey, and our team has been having partner conversations for advancing childcare programs. And then I just want to know overall for all 4 categories, we're at a 35% completion rate. So if you're looking at all 4 categories as a whole, go ahead.
Please.
So for the ARPA funds, does that mean all funds have been deployed or all funds have been committed?
Committed.
Okay,
Yeah, we've executed agreements for the deployment of all of those funds, but there's still funds yet to be paid out under those commitments.
and what do you foresee the timeline of that being to have them fully expended?
Well, our plan is to expend them by the deadline. We do have a deadline
Right.
that we have to meet to expend all those funds, but the contracts are completed now. And I don't know if Director Osborne wants to add anything to that.
Yeah, I think specific to the childcare portion of ARPA, all of those were committed a while ago, and most of those funds are actually with the community. There was a subcontractor involved in the contract, and then they deployed those funds through childcare facility grants and things of that nature. So some of those programs are fully out and 100% spent. So the childcare facility funds were some of the first out of the door and some of the first to the community. When we expand that out to the bigger ARPA conversation, we still have our facade grants that we have a portion of those spent and to the community. And those are really triggered by a back end payment when the infrastructure is done. So much of that, to Mr. Adair's point, is associated with the financial deadlines from the Treasury.
Right.
But on the childcare side, most of that is actually encumbered and spent.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is because I just want to make sure that we have them expended by the deadline. Do we have any concerns about folks not, finishing their work and asking for their reimbursements in time?
We're not seeing anything at this point that would give us any concern on meeting those deadlines. One of the more recent contracts that was executed was with North Coast Builders Exchange for a contractor licensing class that they operate. And we know that that's already scheduled and moving forward. So it's work that they've already committed to, regardless of the status of the funding that they're receiving for the ARPA dollars. But we're continuing to monitor it very closely and working with our finance team and administrative team to watch those contracts to ensure that we pay them out in a timely manner so that we meet the deliverable.
Yeah, I don't worry as much about someone like, a large institution, but, somebody who's doing a facade on their building or something, that's more where I think that we're likely to have, the work
Right.
maybe be delayed because somebody, something else came up for that, business owner.
Right,
So-
right. We're not seeing anything at
Okay,
this
good.
time that would give us any indication of delay. I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add, Director Osborne?
Yes, council member, we actually track those at the permit level on a regular basis. So what we have seen is all of those have gotten to the point where they're permits. One of the challenges is it's up to a business. All the recipients to move forward. So we're making sure we push them to acquire the permits at the right time so they have a construction window. But I just do want to stress the point, we actually track them location to location. So we have staff assigned to that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any questions? All right, we move on.
All right, so that concludes that portion of our updates on the implementation plan and the programmatic initiatives and strategies for the Economic Development Strategic Plan. We're feeling pretty good as a team that in the 3-year plan, we're a third of the way through and it's the first year, so we're feeling right on track. And we'll continue to bring you these updates in future meetings concerning our progress. Next, we're going to move on to a business attraction, retention, and expansion update. And I can share new updates since our last meeting that the City of Santa Rosa staff and other officials have completed as of last week. Its participation in our first Retail Academy, which was a 2-day retail-focused, retail-centric course to analyze gap analyses and retail trends in the market as part of our business recruitment strategy. Through that analysis, we were able to identify that just over $1 billion in retail activity is actually leaving the market and is occurring outside of Santa Rosa's economic sphere of influence, but by Santa Rosans, meaning that Santa Rosans are leaving the market for some of the, to satisfy some of the retail needs for goods and services. Our 2-day Retail Academy session included a market tour where we were able to contextualize some of the mobile data insights and the mobile analytics that were shared with us by Retail Strategies, which was the name of the company or the consultant who facilitated the Retail Academy. We were able to visit 7 retail nodes throughout the city and identify how retail clusters are functioning in Santa Rosa, talked about where some of the gaps lie and where some of the opportunities might be. This effort also is in large part to prepare the city to send a delegation to ICSC. ICSC, an acronym which used to stand for International Council of Shopping Centers, but they've just since rebranded as just ICSC, which is the largest retail industry summit in the country. It occurs annually. It's very common and very typical for public entities to attend that. And we'll be sending a delegation to meet with and sit down with retail businesses specifically as part of a recruitment effort to bring those retailers to the area. And that concludes new updates under the business attraction retention category. Any questions?
You have a question?
We do. So when you say $1 billion is leaving Santa Rosa for retail purposes, what's the top line reason people are going outside of Santa Rosa to meet their retail needs, and to where are they going?
The majority of that, and we will be bringing a more comprehensive report with all those analytics, a full report in the future, is related to food, beverage, and dining. Over half of the $1 billion is related to those retail categories.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think an important piece to that too, and one of the things that we're internally trying to grapple with is what is the linchpin business that causes somebody to leave, and then what are the surrounding businesses from that linchpin that just get to bleed out. So the prime example I can give is that if somebody leaves the community to go to a Home Goods and at Home Goods spends money, but then says, I'm going to do my shopping at Friedman Brothers or some of the surrounding businesses, what was really the driver that got someone to leave the market? Because that's an important piece, because as humans, convenience is a big thing. So really understanding that, I think, is part of this process as well, because then it really places a focus from a business attraction standpoint to where you can keep that in the market. Because many of those businesses that do exist in other jurisdictions, which might be getting some of that bleed out, are in Santa Rosa. So we're really trying to understand the human dynamics, which is a bit challenging. But if you can go into a little more detail, Scott, as to how that's determined.
Yeah, be happy to. So there are several consumer patterns that are identified and analyzed when looking at what constitutes leakage in the market. And primarily mobile analytics is used. Mobile analytics are tied to an individual's cell phone. Anytime you accept an end user license agreement on your Apple phone or your Samsung phone, odds are that you're accepting or you're acknowledging that your place analytics, location analytics will be shared. It's not individualized personal data that's shared, but it does allow us to see and identify and understand the movement of consumers and the timing of that movement. And so we can actually see that X number of consumers may be leaving the Santa Rosa market, for example, as Director Osborne stated, to go to a home goods store outside of the market. That might be the driver. Home goods might be the driver, but then while they're out of the market, they're shopping, they're dining, they're eating, they're doing other things. And all that activity is occurring outside of Santa Rosa, and thus we're not capturing that sales tax revenue. There were other categories besides food, beverage, dining. That was the highest. But we will be putting together a comprehensive report to better understand those categories and what the recruitment strategy needs to be. We will also be coupling that with more outreach and communication with and surveying with our own consumers and our residents in the market to better understand what the goods and services are that they feel like are missing from Santa Rosa that we need to locate here, so that then cross-shopping is occurring locally and not outside of the market.
Okay, let me ask one more question, which is, so food, beverage, dining is number one, what is number two? And does it drop down? Like, is it like there's one dominant one and then there's a bunch of really little ones? Or is it sort of like, number two is a little smaller than number three is a lot smaller?
Yeah, the food, beverage, and dining was over half of the $1 billion. I don't recall what number two was, but I recall some of the other categories.
Okay.
Home goods definitely, but was a category, which is why we're using that as an example.
It's okay. I can wait for the report.
Okay. I didn't have that prepared.
No worries.
It's not part of the
Okay.
agenda today,
All right.
but we do have the categories.
Great, thank
yes.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Question?
How far back does data go?
It's last year's data. So it's 1 calendar year.
Okay. And that's the furthest back we have access to.
That's the furthest back that we analyzed through this retail academy with retail strategies, but we are working to procure a contract, as Rachel mentioned, with Placer AI, which is a mobile analytics software platform. And then we will be able to run these reports ourselves, and we can go back further as long as there's data for those
Right.
time periods. We can go back further, establish some trends.
And the reason I asked the question is because I'm wondering the movement of consumers from downtown Santa Rosa to the outside area of internally Santa Rosa, not so much the county, but how it was affected by both fires and pandemic, and how those numbers are comparable to the most recent data and the trends and movement of the customers.
Absolutely. And we're also looking at the timing, the actual time of day that this activity is occurring. And also looking at weighing that against the amount of goods and purchases that are being purchased online, and what that looks like in comparison to brick and mortar, actual physical on-site shopping, as there's more purchases that are moving to sort of an online format. So all of that we need to take into account. Yeah.
I guess I'd throw a big log in the fire and ask the question, can this finally resolve the question of, do parking meters hurt or help downtown Santa Rosa? And it's a big log I'm throwing in the fire.
I understand that another division is analyzing that, but we're working very closely with them on that question. Yeah.
Okay. As part of the analytics for leaving the market, when you come back with that, can you include a slide? I mean, I don't need an in-depth analysis of basically how sales tax works when things are ordered online, so that so we can have a better understanding of, like, hey, even if we're buying, from Santa Rosa off of Amazon, it's not the same as buying in person at Ace, something like that, so that we get a better understanding of the leakage that we're seeing. Thank you. Because I know we've had discussions about how since COVID, basically the way that we think about sales tax has completely shifted. Thank you.
Absolutely. Any other questions?
No.
Okay. Let's move on. So for entrepreneurship and small business, I know that we reported on a number of things at our last meeting. For this week, I can report out that the next Rise and Thrive business meeting, which was referenced earlier, will be May 7th. And as soon as we have a location for that meeting, we'll share that so that the Rise and Thrive meeting can be shared widely and broadly with businesses in your various districts. That will be a follow-up to the February meeting and the questions that we asked of the businesses and the business support agencies at that meeting. Staff has also begun conversations, or maybe I should say resumed conversations with the SOFA district and those businesses around what potential formation of a property-based improvement district could look like. We know that there was some interest there in the past and that the city has dedicated some resources to exploring it in the past. But for a number of reasons, that discussion or that conversation languished. Businesses have been reaching out to leadership, asking for a review or a sort of renewal of that conversation. And so we've been working with a few of those businesses specifically and looking to have a meeting with those businesses to learn more about their needs and their interests in the end of April. And I'm happy to send that information out if anyone's looking for more information on when that meeting would be occurring. And also want to just reiterate under the entrepreneurship and small business updates that, as Rachel indicated, the business concierge program and the ombudsman program has been adopted. That program is in effect now. That program entails administering a number of technical assistance and consulting type assistance programs meant to benefit businesses, in particular small businesses, so businesses of under 500 employees, providing those businesses with one-stop shop services. We have the physical one-stop shop activated now, and soon we'll have the virtual one-stop shop once we go through our contracting with the consultant for that. We're continuing to provide one-on-one support to businesses by connecting them with resources, funding resources, educational resources, workforce resources, and also providing some hand-holding, if you will, by liaising with the business and our planning and building and engineering counterparts internally for permits that might be in queue or any other tenant improvement or construction activity for those businesses. And there have been a few positive examples of that. Most recently, Rafael Rivero, Economic Development Specialist, who's also serving with the working title of Small Business Ombudsman, has been working directly with Dave & Buster's and a few others, the Montgomery Village property, to provide internal support for all of their permit activity. And I think it's been going very well. And Director Osborne, I don't know if you have anything on that point that you would like to add from the planning, building engineering side.
Sure. Yeah. And first off, Rafael has done a great job in that role. And I think Dave & Buster's is a good example. And just to tell the Dave & Buster's story, there was an absence of conversation with the city up front. Dave & Buster's had concerns about the timeline. We met with them early on with the ball at the table, and we committed to a timeline that worked with their business practice. And Rafael has ensured that we hold that timeline. So I think we all think PED is the front end of development, but really PED is the front end of a lot of pieces that happen behind the scenes in the city to support development. And in many situations, what happens is one of those pieces may go a little slower, or there may be an issue. And how we envision the ombudsman role is they're right in the middle of it. They can address it. They can bring it directly to me, and then we work it out at the director level. So what I've seen is that all along the lines, as we committed to the timeline, we're getting close to issuing a building permit, which means they're starting construction, which is in their timeline. And that's how we really envision the role. So with the larger businesses, it's all about predictability and time, and a singular point of contact that has direct communication to those that can make decisions about the issue. So great job to Rafael. I know we're in the very beginning stages of that, but it's really on how we expand that out. I think that's a really critical role to businesses that are starting, because these small businesses are taking a significant financial risk. So the big ones need the timelines, the small ones need the hand-holding and the assistance. So it's really that full breadth of services that we hope to provide in really certain areas. But I've always thought that that role is really critical to PED in general because it provides consistency. People know who they can go to get questions, and then that person has the ability to resolve the issues through direct connections to others. So I think it's a really good model that we're testing out. Hopefully we can find ways to expand that out beyond just the business services. But I just wanted to point out, and I'm really proud of what Raphael's done, and proud that he could finally get this role going because we've been trying to do this for some time.
Great. Okay. Awesome.
I can add that this information is available online. Some of the program highlights are here on the screen and part of the agenda packet, but I won't read through all of them. If you want to look at the full Business Concierge program, it is available on the city's website. We've been working with Ciro to market it and to champion it into the business community and talking with our business support agencies. I can end with really the spirit of this program is to find and emphasize and support some of the successes that are already occurring in the community and not necessarily reinventing efforts or being redundant or duplicating efforts. Because there are a lot of groups and individuals and nonprofits who are out in the community providing services and support to these businesses already. And rather than creating a competing program, a lot of this is just acting as a convener and connecting businesses with these right organizations and these right groups. And Raphael's done a wonderful job with that. Any other questions on the Business Concierge program before I move?
Yeah, the question will be to Raphael. What changes have you noticed that have helped you the most in becoming effective of obtaining the resources and providing the answers to people that may have them?
Yeah, good question, Vice Mayor. I think definitely communication has been key. I think we're constantly trying to stay connected, to get updates, to look beyond what's needed, and then try to bring those elements into play so that we can provide the proper responses to various businesses that are planning to plant a seed here in Santa Rosa.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
New updates since our last meeting. I just want to share that the band lineup has been selected for our 30th Live at Juilliard concert series, and we're going to begin marketing for those bands in the concert series next month. The economic development team also has been conducting or holding meetings with Recreation and Parks to talk about collaboration between the two divisions, which includes renewal of other public spaces like Comstock Mall, the DeTurk Round Barn, talk about how their programs and economic development programs can work together, since so much of economic development is about quality of life and quality of place as well. Our teams will continue to meet monthly in advanced projects and initiatives. We meet on a regular basis with our parking division leadership as well, talk about parking, the impact of parking, the impact of events on parking, and the need that businesses have for that. So continuing to work internally with our other division agencies and department heads on collaboration towards some of these objectives. I can also share for events that we have been circulating an agreement, and I believe that we have one signature on that agreement as of this morning to transition the event management and support services from the Santa Rosa Metro Chamber back to the city of Santa Rosa. This has been part of ongoing discussions that have been occurring for some time, at least the last 6 months or so. It's something that both parties are very supportive of, and that we're working collaboratively with the chamber on moving these services back to the city and under the purview of city staff so that they can focus on more of your traditional chamber activities and chamber role, such as business recruitment and supporting their members, et cetera. Looking to have that be fully executed by the end of the month, and then that transition period would go through September, at which point the city would be fully managing all of those events in the square.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on economic vibrancy or resiliency updates?
Nope.
All right, Chair, we'll move on to community investment updates. So since our last meeting, the art intern program is nearing completion. And we have an expected launch of that program for summer semester. Very excited to start giving students the opportunity to work with our team and learn more about economic development. The digital scanning of the Asawa panels has been completed, and those panels will be ready for casting in July. The Big Belly Can Art Initiative in Roseland, as you know, Vice Mayor, is complete. That features 10 Sonoma County artists. Those cans have been installed. The city did sponsor 4 art pieces for Earth Day as part of the Earthbound Art for Sustainable Future exhibit. And those pieces are on display in Old Courthouse Square. I'm sure you've seen them or driven by them. One of them in particular is lit up at night. I would make sure you get a chance to take a look at that. Looks pretty cool. And those will be on display through the end of April. A temporary art walk plan was approved, and we do have a call for art currently open for that plan. And we're making some, as part of our preparation for the one-stop shop, the virtual portal, we're making some improvements to our web design for art in particular. There's a new Get Involved tab, which is available online, and our public art proposal application art selection panel form is all available now online through the art pages as well. The team has been able to very effectively and in a very cost economic way utilize social media and utilize social media promotions to garner more attention for our art programs. So rather than spending thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on a marketing consultant, for just a few $100s, we've been able to garner over 200,000 content views and over almost 10,000 social media direct post engagements for some of our art programs that are currently happening. So very excited about that. And that concludes my community investment update. Are there any questions there?
I don't know.
All right. So moving on to metrics and indicators. There's no new metrics report since our last update in March. At our last meeting, we did a year-end wrap-up for all 2024 and presented on a number of key performance indicators for the market then. But we are continuing to develop the list of buckets, if you will, for the metrics that we'll be bringing back in the future. We will be making this metrics report quarterly. It will also be an online feature of the virtual portal that we will have all of the key performance indicators for Santa Rosa's economy, which will be available online. But the buckets that we're putting together based on previous conversations and looking at some of the best practices in other markets would be strict economic performance metrics for the region, like GDP for Santa Rosa, for example, workforce and labor statistics, unemployment rate, wage metrics, such as wage growth and industry worker makeup by industry sector. Commercial real estate indicators, we'll continue to bring those back. I know we've been reporting on vacancy rates and other market rates and trends. Community profile metrics, this has been something that has been less reported on in the past, but again, going back to the concept of quality of life, quality of place, also being a driver of the economy, we'll be bringing back some of those community quality of life metrics to share. Business development indicators, number of business types, development trends, permitting trends, new licenses being applied for, et cetera. Placemaking metrics, healthy places, walkability indexes or indices, those types of key performance indicators. And then also our program metrics. Just as Rachel shared today on our progress for the implementation plan, we will be using the virtual online portal to share with the community some of our progress toward completing these objectives, but also how many businesses we've managed to maybe liaise through the permit system, how many meetings we're having with other nonprofit or other quasi-public business support agencies, et cetera, and then art and event metrics. Any questions on those buckets of data or information?
No, great, thank you.
Okay. And I did write down the note you wrote about the sales tax, so.
Thank you.
All right, well, then we're gonna move on to some special projects. And we're nearing the end of our projects and initiatives update. So the pop-up program, I know we just reported on this last month. It's still under development. We have met with the planning team to discuss and review the appropriate permit type that will be utilized for pop-up activity. Director Osborne mentioned earlier in this meeting that there's a director level permit which is being established, which will be utilized for the pop-up program. We have an upcoming meeting with council to discuss potential formation of a rent recovery fund for landlords. And our program analyst, Rachel Beer, has had a contact or has contacted a local container provider to look into the option of putting temporary either containers or other structures out in the public right of way to allow for pop-up activity. We're also working to with Caltrans on what potential activation under the 101, connecting Railroad Square and Old Courthouse Square, what that might look like for pop-up activity. And we're also in the process of developing a pop-up program manual similar to the Business Concierge Manual, which will define and lay out all these program details. I would say that, did we say it's about 50% complete, the program manual for the
I
pop-up?
think so. We just had edits. We
Yeah.
were still going through.
Any questions on the pop-up program? No, okay. Street activation, just an update on this project. So staff did work with Zero on the Reimagining Downtown Street Activation Initiative survey. That survey has now closed. Last time we met, I mentioned that the survey was open. We do have some preliminary results now for that survey, although we don't have the full report yet. That full report will be coming to your committee at the next meeting. But we had over 1,300 responses to that survey, and over 70 of those were businesses who responded. That, as was discussed at the last meeting, however, is not the end of that outreach. Staff has been conducting door-to-door outreach and visiting downtown businesses to survey them individually and to talk to them about street activation initiatives. We've started compiling a comprehensive report summarizing our research and our findings for street activation. We have a business meeting coming up on April 17th, where we're inviting the business community to come here to the physical one-stop shop to talk about downtown activation and activation of public streets. We are also working with both the DAO and the Railroad Square to do presentations to their bodies on this topic as well. And in the interim, we're analyzing the responses from the 1,300 respondents, also received over almost 700 comments as part of that survey. We've begun working on the infrastructure analysis to understand the infrastructure impacts and needs of any proposed street activation that might occur. Also looking with that traffic and parking analysis as well. Any questions on those efforts?
No. Great, thank you.
Okay. The farmer's market, you may have noticed when you walked in today that there's a flyer on the table for the Sunday farmer's market. This first market is scheduled May 18th and it will run through September 28th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is designed to be a traditional farmers market focusing on agriculture, artisan foods, produce, etc. The operator who is going to be running this particular market has been operating markets for several years and operates other successful markets in the area. Staff has a sort of a final meeting scheduled with the market operators to go over some of the final logistics before we have our first market on May 18th. We've been collaborating with Zero. I realized earlier I used an acronym without stating that, but CIRO is is it Community Intergovernmental Relation, Communications Intergovernmental Relations Office. So we're working with them on a flyer and an outreach strategy for supporting the market, but also for an initiative that we're running called Second Sundays. So Second Sundays is a partner initiative with the farmers market and is aimed at activating the public space and public right-of-way in and around Old Courthouse Square with additional activities and other things to do in the downtown for families, children, et cetera, so that when residents are here for the farmers market, they're also able to engage with some of those other downtown activities as well. Rachel is working with a number of organizations from the Girl Scouts to the History Museum to the Children's Museum with a number of other groups so that we can activate the square every second Sunday through the same season of the farmers market. We wanted to do it every Sunday, but a lot of organizations have budget issues, capacity issues. So we're starting with the second Sundays and we're going to see if we can grow up from there. And this also goes back to, reaches back to the collaboration I mentioned with Recreation and Parks, who will also be working with us on the activation for the Second Sundays program. More information is available online through ilovefarmersmarkets.org, and we will continue to promote the marketing materials that the farmers market shares with us.
Question?
May I ask one quick one? Did you say when it starts?
May 18th,
Thank you.
10 a.m. And the second Sunday?
Is June 8th. So it's June, July, August, and September, the second Sundays. So we'll start in June.
Oh, so it's June what?
June 8th for the second Sundays, but for the farmers market,
Oh,
May.
right. I was asking about.
So May,
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, for second Sundays for family friendly programming, that'll start in June. So June, July, August, and September, just those 4 dates. And then for the farmers market, we'll do May through end of September every Sunday.
Thank you.
But aside from ilovefarmersmarket.org, do we have this information housed on the city website or that flyer in a digital format that we could?
We do. I'm meeting with the communications team on Wednesday to do our outreach plan for the farmers market and second Sundays. So we'll have that through City Connections. We'll have all of the information through our social media. And so we're working on kind of backwards from that date on a communications plan, outreach plan. So we will have all of that housed. Absolutely. We just got the final flyer that we printed here last week. So,
Okay.
so it's very new kind of information that we had all that out. So
Great.
we will, absolutely.
Any other questions on the farmers market? Okay,
Good.
we'll move on to the one-stop shop. We've made reference to the physical one-stop shop a few times today. The physical one-stop shop has been set up, it's been established. Councilmember Fleming, and I encourage you afterwards, we can walk you through and show you what we did in the room there. But we have created now an inviting space for the business community, for the public, to, as I mentioned earlier, under convening and facilitation, meet with consultants, advisors, and a place where there can be general discussions, community level discussions around economic development, placemaking, quality of life enhancements in our downtown, et cetera. We had our first community meeting. Audubon Franquette came. It was an organization of parents from the local French school who came, and we were just the hosts. We just opened the door. They just had their own facilitator, their own topics, and it was all focused on just activation of downtown and making Santa Rosa a better place for them and their families. So we'll continue to encourage and support and host those types of activities in the space.
What did you say it was?
Audubon Franquette.
It's an interesting name.
Yeah. But we are looking to, as was mentioned earlier, we have identified a consultant, which is Cyril. That's Cyril with an S, S-E-A-R-L-E, who went through the RFP process and went through a committee selection process. Cyril has a lot of history working with other communities, developing these types of online virtual platforms and initiatives to support businesses. We're wrapping up the contract with Cyril presently. Those negotiations are underway. Once the contract is executed, we'll move forward with the development of the virtual piece, which will be the companion to the physical piece of the one-stop shop. And that concludes
Question on
the one-stop shop.
more? My only feedback on the one-stop shop is to get instructions for the Nespresso machine, because as a college educated adult, it was a very humbling experience.
We'll write that down. Thank you. So Chair, that concludes the business portion of the agenda.
All right. We'll now have public comment on item 8.1, the economic division update.
Right, this was the Scott's portion that just concluded.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm AJ Trombetta, I'm on Railroad Square's Board of Directors. And going back to the business attraction and retention expansion, the Retail Academy. Was Railroad Square one of the 7 retail nodes that was considered in the ICSC conference preparation?
In public comment, we can't get into a back and forth, but we'll note that and then come back and
Okay, don't forget us.
no worries. Anybody else for public comment on that item? All right, we will close public comment and move. Scott, would you like to address, did the Retail Academy participate anyway in Railroad Square?
The Retail Academy, we have the mobile analytics on Railroad Square. We will be looking at those analytics and we will be taking into consideration any vacancies or any pending leakage. So if there are any businesses expected to fall out of Railroad Square, will be part of that overall recruitment strategy for new businesses. And we will work closely with the Railroad Square director and the DAO director. Both are aware that the Retail Academy occurred and that there's going to be future collaboration around it.
I would also say that the consultant stayed in Railroad Square at the hotel and we had a collaborative dinner there as well. So they're aware of the area.
Yep.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to item 9, matters held in committee.
There are no matters held in committee, Chair.
All right. Public comment on that? All right, does anybody have public comment on that? Seeing none, we'll move on to department reports.
Yes, Chair, I have a few reports and then I'll turn it over to Director Osborne, who may have a few updates as well. I just wanted to share that on the 15th, I will be giving a briefer summarized view of everything that was shared today to the full council. Also, we'll be highlighting program updates to the full council next week on Tuesday. Yes, thank you. That's tomorrow. Including progress on the strategic plan and also bringing the conversation with the staff briefing to talk about the interest that United Soccer League has in Santa Rosa. That will be occurring tomorrow. I also wanted to share that on the future agenda for this body, we're going to add a future agenda items section so that if yourself, Chair, or Vice Mayor, or Committee Member Fleming have items that they see specifically they'd like to see come back to this committee, we'll have that time reserved to take that feedback from you. And that's all I have as far as department reports. I do just want to, before I turn it over to Director Osborne, just share and highlight that program analyst Beer just graduated from the Leadership Marin Sonoma County Leadership Academy. Yeah. So wanted to congratulate her on that.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That concludes my updates. So Director Osborne.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Just a few on my end. And we talked about it a little earlier in the agenda. Some of the things that the department is working on to really rally around the concept of supporting economic development is more on the policy initiative route and cleaning up code sections. So we are taking a look at our use permit process, and that will incorporate signs and anything businesses go through from a permitting standpoint. So we'll be packaging that up. We're currently working on that now. We've had some initial kickoff meetings as to what that would look like. That will probably have some level of prioritization associated with it. So as we go through this gap analysis and understand what we really need, it's how do we turn around and prioritize that on our end from a planning standpoint and building. So it's really rallying the other divisions around the concept of economic development. I know we discussed it in previous meetings as well. We are looking at the concept of entertainment districts. The department continues to explore that. That was an allowance at the state level. and really understanding how that would look to downtown, how we would implement that. We're going through those now, a number of internal meetings. As we understand what a strategy looks like, we'll bring that in front of this body as well as a potential future agenda topic. But I just wanted to highlight those are two items that the department is working on that have been discussed in previous economic development subcommittee meetings.
Great, thank you. Any questions? All right, any public comment on that item? Seeing none, we will move to item 11, adjournment, and we will adjourn at 10:06. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.